everyone, and welcome to the Organizing to Victory podcast, where we're talking garage politics. I'm your host, Lee Perry, and today we're interviewing Natalie Branin, who is an educator within Orange County Public Schools, but also the new president of the Orange County Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida. She's taking over my role as the president as I'm stepping down to get more involved with the party and with campaigns in 2026. Super important election year, but she's going to talk about the intersectionality between education, our environment, and politics. Now let's go to my conversation with Natalie. So I have probably one of my best friends in politics and in life here with us today in the studio. Natalie Branin, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So excited. We have champagne in the house today. Why do we have champagne today?
Because Lee loves Prosecco.
Because I love Prosecco and because it's game day. And I don't know if you knew anything about Natalie, but
go Birds.
She's a big Eagles fan, which we'll talk about in depth.
Yes, they play the Bills at 4:30 today in Buffalo. So
we have to cheers and hope for their good luck and fortune.
Yes. Division champs.
And before we dive into sports, let's talk a little bit about you.
Me. Okay. So not originally from Florida, actually. I moved here about a little over 11 years ago now. I am from South Jersey, originally right outside of Philadelphia, hence my love for Philadelphia sports. Grew up as like a latchkey kid, played outside a lot, which is something that I'm passionate about, is kids being outside. But, running around, then went to college in upstate New York at Syracuse, and then thought, hey, I've been in the Northeast my whole life. Let me go do my master's degree somewhere fun and warm. Came to UCF in Orlando, and I was going to get my master's and then go back up north. And 11 years later, I'm still here.
Interesting.
Yes.
So we've had a lot of different interviews on this podcast, and I always try to figure out what motivates someone, where they're from, how do they end up in Orlando? Are they planning on staying here? So maybe talk a little bit about like your personal why, and is Florida your home for a reason or your short-term home?
Okay. So my personal why, so like I said, I spend a lot of time outside. I have a lot of siblings, so we weren't really allowed to play inside. We were forced outside. So run around the neighborhood, playing in the creek, in the woods, things like that. And then always been just like a very outdoor nature girl. Grew up going to the Jersey Shore in the summer, being near the water and everything. And so I went to college and I became a science teacher. So my degree in earth science. So then science teacher, again, spending a lot of time outside with kids and stuff. And so I think for me, something that's important for me is like, I've taught all of my career in, urban areas, inner city, and kids who don't necessarily have green spaces, creating those green spaces for them. And now with the Environmental Caucus, kind of creating that for everyone of all ages, not just the students in my classrooms, kind of trying to spread that joy to everybody. And, the importance of green spaces and having nature around us just for the health benefits, but also for the ecosystem, for the animals and everything. Yeah.
Well, I think that my target audience is, a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Because, you're in politics, which we'll get to, and you have an actual social life, and you're easy to talk to, and you're energetic and fun. And I want people to understand the importance of why, getting active when you're younger in politics is so important. So I'm just curious, like, when did you start to become politically aware, and were your parents super politically aware?
So I grew up in South Jersey. New Jersey is very blue, very Democratic. I never really had to think about politics that much growing up, but I am a very direct, opinionated, outspoken person. And so I vividly remember arguing with boys in 7th grade about the George W. Bush, John Kerry election. And like George Bush sucks, this, that, you know what I mean? Like, this is why John Kerry's better. And like, I was 12, so I wasn't voting, and my parents never necessarily talked about it. I just am nosy, and, I like to stay informed, a lifelong learner. And then like I've always voted and everything, and I've always been an advocate for the environment. And then I moved to Florida, which was quite a culture shock for me. Very different from what I was used to. And so I used kind of like teaching for a long time as my way to, you know, get kids engaged, talk to them about what's going on. And I don't know if there are any teachers out there, but teaching will exhaust you. So, you know, like I would volunteer here and there, try to stay involved, but my social calendar was not nearly as full as it is now, that I'm out of the classroom. So then, you know, after I got out of the classroom and obviously with the 2024 election, I was like, I can't just be like a casual, like I always vote, I'm reliable, I'll inform people, but I was like, I have to do more. And obviously we've known each other for several years. So who better to get involved with than you, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other now since what, 2017?
Something, or like 2019 or something like that. So, because I remember I was still living in Syracuse and I came down to Jones to do a walkthrough of the garden before I even started working there. It was like May 2019 or something like that.
Well, I remember when I first met you and I was like, oh, wow, she has so much passion. She's so excited. But you were a young white woman.
Yes.
I
still am.
In what was really kind of categorized as like a troubled Black school, high school, Jones High School.
A historically Black high school.
And I'm so disheartened by that because, you know, I was doing urban agriculture and teaching kids about growing food. And at that time, the state legislature made it a mandatory requirement to have agriculture in schools, but didn't provide the budget.
Any funding whatsoever.
No funding. No.
They told me to fundraise.
No lesson plans. And so you kind of got plucked into something that you definitely didn't really have any guidance.
So basically, I had taught in Orange County in Pine Hills, teaching earth science, which is what my degree was in. I had a quarter life crisis, went back up to Syracuse, realized, no, I just needed to not teach middle schoolers anymore. So coming back to Jones, I called and I was like, I want to work at this school. And they were like, what do you teach? And I told them science, because I've got, you know, I'll teach anything. And they're like, oh, we don't need any science teachers. I'm like, well, just interview me anyway. Yeah. And then they were like, hey, you want to teach agriculture? I'm like, sure, I like plants. Meanwhile, like I had my degrees in earth science, which everything's dead. Yeah. It's rocks and soil and, you know, fossils. I had taught environmental science and like engineering. So environmental living things, right? But I wrote that curriculum for the Syracuse City School District. They didn't have one. So, and they gave me a lot of funding. Yeah. So I was writing that. Then I come down to Jones. And again, the agriculture, there's no supplies. I literally had a shovel that was probably like 40 years old and like rusted.
Yeah, I think it was like the janitor's supplies.
Yeah, that was it. Everything was like, the greenhouse was broken. There were no raised beds. They were like, you can have this grassy area behind the portables or next to a long stay motel where like people going in and out. And I was just like, you know what though? Like my therapist says I do everything 150%. So I'm like, I'm doing this and we're going balls to the wall. We're going to make this the best urban ag program there is, because what the district didn't think about was that a lot of the other schools have physical space. They have more than one teacher. They have higher socioeconomic status students. They have people who have like worked in this field before, and I didn't have any of that, but I was like, whatever. So like took the curriculum that was kind of provided and like specialized it for my kids. I would get in arguments with all the other teachers that had like fields of cows and stuff. And I'm like, listen, I got 6 raised beds thanks to Ideas for Us. So we're working with this, but just kind of going about it my own way, which I've always done. Everywhere I've ever taught, I get told I'm crazy, this isn't going to work, blah, blah, blah.
And those kids.
Yes.
Everything was about those kids.
Yeah. I always get the naughty kids. Yes. I was told I was crazy for taking all the naughty kids outside all the time and things like that. But I say science happens outside. So going full speed ahead on this ag program, got like a bunch of like donations and funding and stuff from partners, a lot of it thanks to you. And just kind of went full speed ahead on this ag program. And it's funny because then I asked the district about supporting me financially, and they told me, no, you need to fundraise. I'm like, a third of my students have insecure housing. Like, so they're just trying to get by. So I was like, that's okay. That's crazy, but okay. So come back. And I'm like, I got to find a different way to get these projects done, get them funded. Did a bunch of donors choose projects too to get supplies or like field trips and things like that. But yeah, then the next year, the district asked me to lead the assessment writing for all of agriculture, and they were not happy about it. But because new agriculture teachers didn't really have any resources, and I created a whole course for them, like outlined by unit with materials, lessons, this and that. And they got upset with me, but I was like, as a new person, this is what I needed and it wasn't available. So I made it myself and then I shared it with the new people. And I didn't require anyone to use this is an available resource if you need it. You know this about me. I am hyper organized. I like things like neat and tidy and labeled and color coded and folders here and there. So for me, that was what I needed. And I thought it's helpful especially me already being an experienced teacher, I had classroom management under my belt. I didn't know this curriculum. I was learning it as I went, especially like animal science. We didn't have animals. So I had to restructure that because other people who have animals spend a whole month or two on animal science because they have cows and goats and ducks and chickens and whatever outside to go take care of. Well, we didn't. We just had plants. So my plant science unit became a lot longer. My animal science unit was more bare bones. And I just worked it the way that I thought was best for my students.
It just sucks because the first day I met you was the first day you toured the school and the facility. And at that time, I was fundraising for different projects, whether it was at an assisted living facility or what have you. It just so happened to coincide with this mandatory requirement of agriculture being implemented in every high school. But at that time, I was also going to Evans High School. And the teacher there was like sobbing because she was spending so much of her extra out-of-pocket money to buy just basic things that she had no idea, no help on what even was to grow. So she's wasting money on seeds that don't grow in Florida soil, trying to use the sand to grow things to teach these kids that, frankly, if you don't have it together, kids know. They see right through that.
Yes, they're extremely perceptive, whether we want to admit it or not. I will say, shout out to Palmer's because I used to go there a lot and get advisement on what to grow when and seeds and things like that. You guys were super helpful with that as well. Also, just taking the time to research and figuring out like growing calendars for Florida and your zones and things like that was really important for me. Because again, what happens if I plant all this stuff and nothing grows and these kids are looking at me like, what in the world, ma'am? Like,
but it's not fair that on top of your full-time job of just teaching, you also have to write your own lesson plans from zero. And then you also have to fundraise and beg for donations.
When I left Jones, I went out in the garden and cried for at least an hour or two. And I left my classroom because essentially I was leaving thousands upon thousands of my own money, dollars of my own money, just there to be whoever came in, like to not use, to just be ignored. Like it's probably all still sitting there.
Well, I think the benefit, like you were telling me once, that these naughty kids that should never go outside, how did they act when you actually took them outside?
They were wonderful. I remember one student, Fetty, because I had my kids every year. So I taught all 4 levels. So I taught agriculture and then Hort 2, 3, and 4. So they were with me every year, which was nice for me because they know the deal. But I remember one day he looks over at me, we're outside, and he's like, Miss B, like sometimes it's just so nice to be outside and not be stuck inside all day. I'm like, yeah, it really is nice to be outside. Like these kids, like either like maybe they're doing sports after school, and then by the time they're done sports, it's dark out, or maybe they have to work after school, or they have to go get their siblings, or like they don't have somewhere to just be outside and hang out with their friends, or they don't feel safe outside, right? So, or there's not green spaces for them to go to, or you don't know, like it's hard too for sometimes the kids, they go outside and someone thinks they're suspicious, right? So even just trying to avoid that. So it was nice for them to have like a safe space outside where also like they were doing something productive and they were literally reaping what they sowed. And like I remember watching these kids like eat snap peas from the garden, or like pull a piece of lettuce, just like plain lettuce, and eat it. Like they were so excited about it. And I'm like, no ranch dressing? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? But like we would eat the stuff that we grew. We had a farmer's market at the school. They would take it home. We would sell it to teachers and stuff. We would grow herbs and like flowers and stuff in the greenhouse and starter plants. Like they grew all sorts of stuff and were able to eat it. I remember like one day when we harvested our cucumbers and we brought a bunch inside, and like I cut up all the cucumbers, and we had like a cucumber party basically. And they're just like eating this stuff that they themselves grew. It was so fun.
Well, I'm not really as familiar with the dynamics of the administration of schools down to like the principals, and then, you know, down to the teachers and faculty. But I remember hitting so many obstacles, because I remember thinking like, I want to sell in the cafeteria, or at least let the kids grab a bag. And then I think the USDA or whoever supplies like some food to, or at least the money. You can't compete with the free school lunch that's like pizza.
Things with schools and things with kids always have a ton of red tape. So we were able to do it outside, like as they were leaving, or like outside of the lunch area. Or like I would have kids, you know, their parents would like order stuff. I had a little form that I would send out to all the teachers of like, this is what we have, first come, first serve. And I would have them fill it out. And then at the end of the day, I would have my students with my little wagon go around and deliver the bags to the teachers of what they had ordered. But yeah, I will say I was lucky at a school level. My administration was like, I asked them like, how much freedom do I have in this course? And they were like, because the one benefit of agriculture is that nobody knows what you're supposed to be doing besides you, basically. And I didn't necessarily know. I didn't even have a copy of the textbook the first year that I was supposed to be teaching out of. I had no copy of it. I think I got it because a teacher, like a theater teacher at a school across town or across the county, like was like, oh, there's all this random ag stuff in the theater room. And I got it like from there. So I didn't even have the actual like textbook. So, but my admin was like, we trust you to do what you think is best in this course. I'm like, cool. And I kind of just saw it as like an environmental justice course, you know, skill building course. Everything I do as a teacher, I am trying to teach skills through the content I'm doing. So I don't care if they forget the 3 types of soil. I care that they know how to grow their own food, or how to know like if there's pests, you know what I mean? Like just teaching different skills so that way they can be successful. Because again, like, maybe this is taboo, but content itself doesn't necessarily matter. We can look things up. You can always check something, but like having the skills to be resilient, to be independent, to be resourceful is a much more long lasting and like important thing to me.
Yeah. You showed them every side of it. You even had, you know, how to market and how to do branding, how to do Canva, so that people could understand that whether it's food or whatever product, as an entrepreneur, you need to have this skill set, which is really smart, because it is a part of agriculture. You know, farmers don't just grow, they have to market and understand, you know, sales. But I think that there were other hurdles as well, because, you know, I remember wanting to like cross fundraise and write grants together, because it's a food desert out there in Paramore and Pine Hills area. And if we're actively seeing success in students being outside and learning, curbing some behavioral issues, actually producing produce, then we could scale that up to a point where, you know, because an adult will be so much more likely to buy or even just take free food, free produce if their kids grew it.
Correct.
You know, and if they're accustomed to eating what they can get at a convenience store because that's what they grew up eating, and we're trying to break that system and introduce new groceries and fresh food, we have to do that starting, I believe, in the schools.
Correct. And so like I think about the closest like grocery store is the Walmart on like John Young and Princeton, probably.
Right. That's far.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, so I always ask each class, like we did a vote, what do you want to plant out of these options that are in season and seeds we have, right? Or like, what do your parents use? And that was one way we were able to do it. I will say part of the struggle is that I was one teacher with 40 kids in a class teaching all 7 periods. So that's about 250 kids. You have to grade 2 assignments minimum every week. So that's 500 items I'm grading every week on top of 4 different sets of lesson plans, on top of also having to be the FFA advisor, on top of also doing all the other extra
and fundraising,
planning all these events, field trips, whatever it is, you know. So like that's, I think too, like people like, oh yeah, we should do this. Cool. Fund the school so we can hire more people. So I'm not doing this by myself.
Yeah.
I could have another teacher teaching this with me to bear some of the burden and help. You know what I mean? Like, I think people don't understand. Education is not like a commodity. It's not like a direct transaction and you don't see the results immediately. America is very used to instant gratification. So they don't invest in things that are a long-term return. So education, I believe, is one of those things. You're creating these humans to be productive members of society, to participate in an economy, to like, you know, participate in, like do all these things for their community, right? And so if we're not investing in that, you're not getting the return that you're expecting because you're not getting it right away. You're getting it 10 years after the fact, or like several years after they've graduated. So like we talk about wanting these like highly skilled workers and highly educated people, but we're not actually doing the things to create that. And so then, like you were saying, like we, going back to what you're saying, like we provided produce to Grand Bohemian and they were so excited to have like someone local getting this from these kids in the neighborhood who grew this stuff. And like I said, parents would be more willing to, you know, eat stuff their kids directly made. I had so many kids who started growing things at home and like sending me pictures because of the class. But then what happens when you don't have money for that? Or what happens when you don't have a yard or the space for all the gardening stuff? Or, you know, what happens when you have to make these really difficult choices and you have to go with the choice that's going to best benefit your family? Like I feel like we so often invest in the wrong things, which is why, like, to me, green spaces are so important. Community gardens are so important. Creating these outdoor spaces for people is so important. People deserve to have healthy food. Like that should be a human right.
And it seems like education is the canary in the coal mine on how a society is doing, you know, and I think that for some reason, you said, you know, we are quick to want to see a return on our investment. The only way that I think schools are trying to develop a metric to see that return instantly year after year are like grades. But for some reason, I feel like it's backwards, where they give more money to the higher performing schools rather than more investments to the lower performing schools that need help to get to the same place.
Yeah. It's like I've always worked in lower performing schools, and it's not because the kids aren't as smart. Yeah. That is not the issue at all. And I think that's what people think it is. Oh, well, they're not getting as good of grades. Yeah, it's really hard to get straight A's when you have to work full time to help support your family, because maybe you came from another country and only one parent is here and you have siblings and you have to send money back, or, you know, you came here by yourself, or your parents passed away and you're 18. Like, there are so many different circumstances that people go through, or just some people, it's just because the traditional school system, the way it's set up, isn't successful for not everyone finds success that way, and that is okay. And I think American society is so rigid in the fact that like you have to have this specific way of doing school, and that just doesn't work for everyone. And if it doesn't work for you, then either like you're dumb or you're this or you're that, and that's just not the case. I even think about, I was very successful in traditional public schools, And then going to college, at first I struggled a little bit because having to regulate myself more was something that I had to work on. But also I was working 3 jobs. I was a double major. You're paying all your own bill. I'm paying my rent, paying for my car. I'm like trying to get to this job, that job, schedule my classes, get my homework done. Like there's just things that people go through. And like, I don't think kids should be penalized. Like, I think what people forget is that student didn't choose their parents' finances. They have no say in how much money their parents make and what their parents' job is, their parents' situation. That is what they were born into. Mm-hmm. And so how dare us like condemn them to some certain destiny because of something they have no control over? So yeah, like it is really, because there is no money in education, and the money that there is, it doesn't necessarily always go to things that I wish it went to. And not everyone is as much of a loudmouth as I am. And, you know, saying that, I think people fear backlash, especially in Florida and public education. Like, it is very difficult to be an educator here. You don't get paid well whatsoever. You have so many restrictions now. Post-COVID is just a completely like different world. Cell phones have changed the game, and like laptops and now AI. Like it is constantly evolving and not necessarily for good. And it's difficult to keep up with all that. And I think in the end, the people who lose out the most are the kids because of all this stuff. And they have no control over any of this.
Yeah. And, you know, if you could wave a magic wand today and change some fundamental things, what would you change?
Make educators the ones who create the curriculum, not business people. Testing is like super profitable, but what testing indicates is who has food at home.
Yeah.
And who has support at home. It's not a kid's fault if their parent has to work the night shift and they have nobody to read to them every night. And now they come into kindergarten, they're expected to know how to read and write. Whereas you and I didn't learn to read or write until 1st or 2nd grade.
Yeah. I taught myself how to read. My dad never helped me with my homework. I didn't have literally anyone.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine someone who English isn't their first language. Correct. Or have siblings that they have to take care of.
Correct.
I can't imagine.
I'll say too, like I was teaching during COVID, and I didn't make attendance optional as long as kids checked in with me during the week. And I would do like a Friday office hours where I was just there. They could see each other on like Zoom or whatever, like ask me questions. But the number of kids who are like, hey, I'm having to help my sibling in elementary school who's never used a laptop before log on to class with their teacher in first, like, and it's just like, I can go help yourself. Like some people are so rigid. And for me, I'm like, hey, are you alive? I used to every Friday make them send me a picture of themselves outside. Show me you're outside and you're like doing okay and you got some fresh air for 10 minutes.
Well, I'm really excited to dive into that because I'm sure the voucher program is making that even harder. So we're going to have to go down that route. But, you know, right now you brought up laptops during COVID. Right now, a lot of laptops and routers were provided by Orange County, providing some assistance. And the American Rescue Plan like reimbursed some of those expenses. And now DeSantis and the state legislature is attacking our local governments, saying that those are woke expenditures for DEI, when literally there were some kids sitting outside of Taco Bell trying to do their homework because, you know, maybe they've never even had a laptop before or had internet.
They need Wi-Fi.
Even our rural communities that, you know, might have a little bit more money, many of them don't even have broadband.
This is part of the reason why as a teacher, I've never assigned homework. I get you for an hour a day. If I can't get everything done in that hour, I need to plan better. Kids should never have to go home and do homework. And I wrote my whole grad school like capstone about this, is that homework is a farce.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help as much as people think it does. Also, I don't want to create another assignment. I don't want to grade another assignment. And that's home time. That's your actual, like, you were at school for 7.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make you do more. Crazy.
I remember my mom calling the schools, like cursing at them because every single class gave me like robust homework.
Correct,
And I
yep.
would be doing homework till like
All
9
night.
o'clock at night. And she'd be like calling the school, cursing them out. Like, you need to stop giving my kid all this homework.
Right, because if you played a sport after school, okay, so now I'm not getting home till like 6 o'clock, and then I have to somehow find time to eat dinner, shower, and then I have like 4 hours of homework.
Yeah.
And then wake up at 6 a.m. the next day and do it all over. Yeah.
And so so magic wand.
Yeah.
My magic wand would be just paying teachers more.
That part.
So that we can retain and invest and certify, recertify, make sure that teachers have regular check-ins, regular support, regular, abilities to keep up with things like AI and understand. Because I mean, I work in politics, so you would think that, a lot of our government staff know how to use basic apps and basic, Microsoft Outlook, and they don't. So I can only imagine these teachers are every year having to hurdle over the next technological advancement and still try to keep their curriculum,
the new
like,
initiative,
prevalent.
the new app, the new this, the new that. And it's not even like per school, it's like coming down from the top, being told. And then you find one you really like, you're using it, and then they don't want to pay for it anymore. And now you have to pivot your whole, lesson or whatever. I've had that happen so many times where something now the day of, oh, we don't have this anymore. I had a observation where the entire internet went out, and I had to teach my whole lesson without technology. And we were supposed to be technology-based lessons because we were one of the initial schools when I was teaching middle school to have one-to-one laptops in the district. So I'm supposed to be doing these like online lessons, and now got to pivot.
It's crazy because I actually got my associate's degree in education. I was really looking forward to being a teacher because every strong woman in my life was an educator. But then as I'm working my way through school, every single strong woman in my life was like, stop, get out. You can't be Miss Frizzle. You're not going to be, because like, even I remember, my best friend's mom, who I call Mama Bear, she told me that one day she was reprimanded. This is a woman who has like 30 years in education. She was reprimanded because she was teaching her first graders about the weather, and there was a sun shower outside with a rainbow, and they couldn't believe that it was raining and there was like no clouds.
Yeah.
So she takes the kids outside and she got written up.
Yeah. That
Like,
I am a beg for forgiveness type of person, and I will stand by what I do because if I think that that's what you've trusted me to do, what's best for these kids. And so this is like I said, science happens outside. Weather is outside. Why would we not go look at it? What a teachable moment.
right.
But you have people that just like are not familiar with the tenets of education and pedagogy and just like the nature of science. Like you have so many people who are not an expert telling you what to do. And it's like, why did I have to get a degree? I actually have 3 degrees. I have 5 different certifications that I had to take. I had to take all these tests to be here. I had to do student teaching. Like I had to do all this. I had to go to I had to do all this stuff. I had to do continuing education every year to keep my certification. And you don't trust me?
And on top of all of that, which, I'm assuming that there are other teachers who are obviously like struggling with their own student loans, probably can't afford to make rent, and are in and out of being unhoused. And then
teachers aren't allowed to get food stamps.
Oh, see, now I didn't know that. Why
we
not?
make too much.
And then on top of that, I mean, you have 10,000 students that are homeless in Orange County Public Schools. I know a few teachers that are currently working for Orange County Public Schools who are also homeless, living either on someone's couch or in their car.
Yep.
Now you're telling a teacher that they have to learn a new program or get certified in a new thing.
And they're expected to do all this stuff outside of their work hours, which are unpaid. And if it's like taboo to leave at your assigned, like to only work your paid hours, that's like a weird thing in education. Like if you're not working outside of your hours, you're like not a good teacher. But like I ended up having to do it because I'm teaching all these classes. Like, I don't have a planning period to do this. So I end up having to do it after school, right? But eventually when you get to that point where you are able to just work your paid hours, it's like a taboo thing. Like, oh, I remember when I was up in New York and people are like, oh, the newbies are leaving at their contract time. Yeah, well, I used my planning period wisely.
Yeah. And I don't know why America chooses to do this. I remember when the fight for the $15 minimum wage was happening in Congress. I remember seeing people comment on the post that I would make being like, I worked so hard to get my degree, and to think that some kid is going to graduate from high school and get a wage that I had to fight to get when I was in my 30s. You know, in my head, I'm like thinking like,
how weird to have that perspective.
First of all, you're an engineer, so you're making buku bucks now, and them making $15 as a minimum wage is not depriving you of anything.
Correct.
So people being able to work within the confines of their contractual agreement should be smart as like an entrepreneur. You signed up to work this many hours, and per your contract, that's how many hours you work. And our culture, our community, our society should, like they do in Europe, value someone's ability to go home and spend time with their family. Like, I lived in Italy, and if your daughter was sick and you came to work, your boss would be like, what the heck are you doing here?
Correct.
Go home and take care of your child.
Sick days aren't a thing that exists in Europe. You don't have to take a sick day. You just don't come to work if you're sick.
Yeah. If you are coming to work and your wife is sick or whoever, you're like, look, you're judged for that. Whereas if you miss a couple days in a row because you have a sick kid, people judge you.
Yeah. In education, they think that everyone's kid should only be sick in the summer, and you should only have doctor's appointments in the summer, and any medical emergency should only happen in the summer. And I will say, a lot of people, like, it is so much more work to be out than it is just to be there.
Yeah.
Sub plans and this and that. And then like, now the number of every time I'm not there, something's happening with my kids because I'm not there. And I'm like, you see how much I'm holding it down in here?
Yeah.
Like, it's about the relationships with the kids. And it's just like, you want these people to be some of the most highly educated, highly qualified people, and you want to making so many decisions a day. The thing about teaching that people don't realize, the second you are on campus, you are on until you leave campus. And even then you're taking home the emotional load from the day. And so I remember one of my students years ago, he was like, Ms. B, I know you are tired at the end of the day because you're putting on a performance for 7 hours straight.
Yeah. And
while you're performing, you're also checking everyone's laptop. Oh, there's an email. Someone's calling. Kids late. Oh, you have another new student. I used to get a new student every week. Find a seat for them. Oh, my computer's not working. This app's not working. Miss B, I need to use the bathroom. I need to go to the nurse. I'm mad because me and my girlfriend broke up. Oh, my mom hit me yesterday, and now let me call the social worker. Hey, stop going on YouTube. Put your cell phone away. Like, and that's just like off the top of my head what I can.
That's all day.
Think of. And that's not even the actual lesson I'm teaching. So you
didn't get a lunch or a break?
You technically get a 25-minute lunch. My 25-minute lunch was spent going to check my mail, going to the bathroom, checking and responding to as many emails as I can, grading as many things as I can, or making whatever I had to do. My lunch became my planning period. So since I've left teaching, I've gained like 25 pounds.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
That's health weight.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to kind of pivot a little bit because I feel like, you know, politics would be an easy transition.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, and I know you were doing such a good job, so don't take offense to this, but like, it sounds like you were literally drowning. Yeah. You were literally drowning in like every second of your day had to be dedicated to something that the administrators and the people that are getting paid probably 7 times more than you should be thinking every day, how do I take one more thing off of this teacher so that they can make sure that the children are getting the attention and the time that they need to perform better?
Yeah. I was lucky because my admin at Jones were very good at protecting us from unnecessary stuff from the district so that we could focus on things we needed to do. It doesn't mean that my job wasn't hard. It doesn't mean I was having to do a bunch of extra stuff for stipends. And like, I am a firm believer in public education. I believe in public education and I support public education. And I still work in public education, just not in the classroom. But like, it is, I would say like, I may have been drowning because public education is drowning.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't just like it is as a system right now, severely underfunded, understaffed, and people just don't believe in it. And that's wild because how did we all get to where we are without schooling? The number of people that I know, like I know for me, my teachers were people who inspired me to do the things that I do and really guided me through my life. And I'm still in touch with several of them. And it's like, who doesn't have a memory from public school?
Right. That is an important thread, a fiber of who you are.
Correct.
You know, that helps you. And so, and when I say administration, I'm really talking about district.
Yeah.
Because I know that you had good support at Jones, because I feel like...
Because in schools, administration refers to like your principals and assistant principals, and then everyone else is like above that is like the district.
The district. So, and you said it so much better than I did. It sounded like you were drowning. It sounds like public education is drowning, and it sounds like disproportionately marginalized schools, marginalized communities that have the more burdens in their society because they can't find affordable housing, because they're taking on generational trauma, et cetera, are like just so underwater, and more anchors are being added to these teachers as they go.
That, and the fact that people leave the classroom and then they become out of touch with what it's like to be in the classroom. So like they don't think about all these things. Like for instance, I remember the district, like when we came back from COVID in 2022, January 2022, they sent out a robocall, and I never received it, but to all the families, that students don't have to physically attend school as long as they're doing their work at home. We come back from break, no one is coming to school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where are all these kids? And then one of the kids tells me, I'm like, play it for me. And then we all find out that and then they had to rescind it after 2 weeks because no one was showing up to school and they weren't doing their work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you had asked me, do you think we should send this?
Yeah.
I would have told you no, because this is what's going to, and so that's like, decisions are being made without all the people in the room.
So, you know, the other thing that I really want to talk about is you have basically this metric of performance. If I had a magic wand, and I'm not even as well versed as you, so tell me if I'm right or wrong, how we measure the performance of our schools needs to be completely reshaped. And I think that's why people lose hope in schools, is because it's so driven by, you said, test scores, grades. But just like, you know, you and I do a lot of environmental work together, the health of our environment is not measured in GDP.
Correct.
The health of our society is not measured in GDP. The health of our society and the health of our ecosystems are measured by something that you can't quantify in the way that humans expect that return on investment to quantify. And so when you look at schools, there has to be some type of quality of life metric.
And it should be based on progress, each individual student's, because my progress is different from little Johnny's progress next to me. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're moving forward, then that should matter. And I used to try to individualize my stuff as much as possible, because not everyone learns the same things the same way at the same rate. Like as long as the student's improving, I feel like that is what matters. And like, it doesn't necessarily mean improving strictly by grades. It might be improving like socially, attendance, involvement in extracurricular activities with the school. Like, there's so many ways you could measure a student's success in school aside from just test scores and grades.
Especially since, you know, they're packing a lot of students in with very small numbers of teachers that are struggling with their own battles right now. And I think right now there's a feeling of everybody wants their child to have equal. And I mean, you work with a lot of parents, so maybe you have more experience in this, but I feel like sometimes parents, they want more than what their children might actually be able to achieve in that moment. Like, and I think when you have grades, you expect your child to be at a certain grade instead of trying to individualize that curriculum for that student. So, like my, best friend's mom, she was telling me that like she would have a class with like 40 kids, and some kids would have like severe autism or severe behavioral or learning disabilities. And she was told, just sit them in front of a computer and let them play video games. And she wasn't given as much support to ensure that the curriculum was, catered to their learning style and their needs. But because they would become extremely, they would have outbursts during the class time, plus you have some kids that don't even speak English, and and it's one teacher usually with like a part-time, I guess they call it like a para teacher.
Yeah. If you have a para.
If you have one, once or twice a week. And so like that just becomes almost like debilitating. But the fight there, and the point that I want to make, is some parents say, well, I want my child to have what the other children have.
Which parents don't always understand. They want equity for their kid, not equality.
Yeah.
Like, you want things to be equitable, not necessarily equal.
Right.
Because even if you take it like the other spectrum, gifted kids, there are so many gifted kids who don't do well in school because they are bored.
Yeah.
And so that's another set of lesson plans. And then you have your ESOL lesson plans. And then you have your IEP and your 504 lesson plans. And then your, standard lesson plan. And you're doing all of that at the same time. I also had layered classes, which is 2 classes at the same time, 2 different curriculums.
That's crazy.
At the same time I'm teaching.
It's like they're trying to squeeze as much as they can out of you. And when I say they, it's the folks at the district that are trying to use a metric to quantify performance and quantify output.
And making these requirements and then not providing the structure and, materials.
And so every year they're looking at, how can I get more out of each teacher that's in a classroom? Pack more kids in, pack more 2 classes in 1 class. Yeah. What the heck? That doesn't make any sense.
I know. And it's like, I love teaching. I love being a teacher. It is the most important work probably I've ever done in my life, is shaping young minds and just guiding them through things and mentoring them. I was actually telling my friend this morning about this, if Renedra, if you ever see this girl that I had her junior year, and just mentoring her through here and watching her grow and going off to college and just like blossoming into this incredible young woman. And just like, you've met Reagan too, and like Mantuan, who it's like, I have all these connections with these kids, and it's like, I feel like one of the biggest issues is that like teachers love teaching.
Yeah.
But who's loving teachers? We get so much hate. We just get yelled at all the time. We are just so many things put on our plate for terrible pay. And we all are saddled with student loans. And it's like, no one is pouring back into our cup. And then everyone's like, why are you not giving 200% to my kid every day?
Yeah. You
know what? I could be better if your kid's phone was away and you stopped FaceTiming them in the middle of my class. So like something I did was I called every parent the first 2 weeks of school and told them, I'm so excited your kid is in my class. We're starting off on a good foot. Because you don't want to be that person that the first time you hear from your kid's teacher is so-and-so's in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like just having honest conversations in parent-teacher conferences. But the thing is, like, I'm showing up every day. I need everyone else to show up too.
Did you feel respected by the parents?
At first, I don't think I ever felt disrespected. My thing was I was teaching in majority Black schools, and then some young white woman comes in and people have this, you know what I mean? Like, and I understand that. And I have a lot of ground to cover to get to where you trust me, respect me, your kid is with me, that nothing nefarious is like, you know what I mean? So I never felt disrespected because I understand that the optics of the situation, which is why like I really over my teaching career worked on like how do I model the behavior that I'm expecting out of these kids. And I, after a couple years, you learn I'm not raising my voice at them because I don't want them to raise their voice at me. Mm-hmm. And just talking to them like they're just humans and respecting them and giving them respect without making them earn it. Mm-hmm. People are like, oh, you have to earn respect. No, hi, thanks for coming. You're a human being who surpassed every obstacle today to be here. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like creating extra obstacles for myself. And it's not something you learn right away. You learn it after a couple of years of teaching. So yeah, I don't necessarily, and like if parents are like being disrespectful, I try to let it roll off my back because they're also dealing with a lot. So I never felt disrespected. Did I ever feel unappreciated? Sometimes, yeah.
I just asked that because you brought up 2020.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about how COVID shaped our education. And then I want to talk about the voucher program.
Yes.
But I think there is now this open conversation being had about parents just kind of looking at you as like, you're just watching my kid while I'm at work and not really like hearing your advice or hearing what teachers have to say in order to work as a team to improve their children.
Yes.
Probably because they're also struggling to find, consistent housing and to
Correct.
Put a meal on the table. But we're in an economy right now that's just go, 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 rush. We got to hurry up and get to the next thing.
Right. If you're not hustling, what are you doing?
Exactly. And education is slow and it's complex and you're learning all these different ideas and you're trying to keep up. You don't necessarily need to have all these extra outside pressures, but they're there and it's causing more of that drowning feeling.
COVID was really tough. First of all, because you don't know if your students are okay. You're not seeing them and they may not be answering. And then I'm being required to do these attendance calls and texts and parents are yelling at me because stop calling, or they're calling me at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night or it was so stressful. And like everyone talks about their COVID experience, because as you know, now I bake sourdough bread. Everyone's like, oh, everyone did that in 2020. I'm like, I was working. Yeah. I was working all through COVID. So I did not have time to be baking bread. But just the fact that like, we are also worried about your children. I see them every day and now I don't know if they're okay. And they're telling me so-and-so sick or this and that. And like, we can't go anywhere. Like, and sometimes for those kids, like your class is like the one time where their nervous system can relax and it's a safe space and they know that like nothing is going to happen in there. Right. And parents are obviously stressed because how do you work and coordinate childcare? Right. America relies on public schools for childcare. Not like that is a fact. And so parents are also frustrated. I think a lot of times in this country, we direct our frustration at the wrong people. Yeah. So everyone's frustrated at me. I didn't close the schools. I did not cause a pandemic. I am figuring out, again, pivoting how to do my job with this new thing and new tech, like the rest of us are. And so it was honestly like a lot of parents just being able to express their frustration kind of with the system and not taking it personally and knowing like you have 5 kids at home of all different ages and they're all supposed to get on a laptop at different times and go to all these different classes and this assignment, that assignment, and you're also supposed to work. So it's like, I don't blame parents for the system not supporting them. It's really tough. And
I'm sure that just escalated problems because a lot of kids, some of their only meals that they get are at school.
Or some kids need motivation from somebody. They need to,
that routine helps them get out of bed, get up, leave. It kind of felt like, I'm an adult and it felt like the world was ending. Right. I was panicking. I was scared. I didn't know how to interpret everything that was going on. Right. No one in my life, my parents, my grandparents never experienced a pandemic that shut down the whole world.
And I don't have kids myself. So it's also walking that line of speaking with parents about what you should do for your kid from me, the woman who has no kids, but
Right.
I'm not. It's like, like parenting and education walk a fine line.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's overlap and sometimes there's really not. And there are certain things like that, sometimes you have to have a hard conversation with a parent, and it's almost like I feel like inappropriate, but like some like cell phones, right? Or like not going on YouTube all the time, like
or
things
even
like
just
that.
being able to make sure your kid has a meal so they can focus.
Right.
Like you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
If that parent is crying, I had that situation. My mom would cry every time she fed me peanut butter and J because that was all we literally had.
Right.
But I think COVID probably escalated a lot of those problems. And then you have,
and then what did we do about it?
Yeah.
We didn't do anything different. And parents are still struggling.
People came back and it's worse.
Yeah.
Because then rent skyrocketed and now cost of groceries skyrocketed.
These school vouchers.
Yeah.
Where basically if you are already paying for your kid to go to private school and you can afford it, you don't need these school vouchers, right? And they're not even going to cover the full tuition. It's like $9,000, something like that. And then there's not accountability for these vouchers. Or there's like such little accountability that people can use them. And then they don't have to send their kid to a school.
Well, this is actually something that specifically private Christian schools have been trying to do nationally for years, since before we were born. Yeah. There's actually a West Wing episode where they literally are trying to lobby for this voucher program, and they're going through all the metrics of how it will literally privatize public schools in a way. We're removing public funding, just funneling it into already typically wealthy
And then
schools.
What do the kids do who can't afford private school?
But it's not even just the private school part. It's the fact that private schools are allowed to discriminate.
Right.
And they're allowed to cater their beliefs and intertwine that with their tuition.
And they don't have to follow like state, like they don't have to have an accredited diploma. They don't have to have certified teachers.
Right.
So I hear people talk about, I'm thinking about sending my kid to this private school. I'm like, hey, before you do that, I know that sounds like that's a better option. But FYI, private schools don't have to have certified teachers. They don't. An accredited diploma means it's like accepted by like colleges will accept it, and it means you have like a legit valid high school diploma. Not all these programs are an accredited program, so you may have just paid for 4 years for your kid to go to this school, and their diploma isn't really real.
Mm-hmm. And I think and
they're not going to tell you that until.
It's kind of a funny thing because after COVID, I remember DeSantis was trying to like expedite the ability for veterans and like retirees.
Veterans and spouses of veterans can just become teachers
without having to go through the years of certifications that you had to go through. And then now they're just funneling money from our public education into basically this voucher program, which I'll always remember. At the time I was talking to Angie Gallo, who actually will be coming on the pod. She was talking about how she actually teared up, how she knows so many kids already don't get an adequate meal and they have stuff going on at home that they aren't able to necessarily always talk about. And now you don't have eyes on them if they're now like homeschooled. And I mean, at this very same week that she was telling me this, there was a boy, I think it was in North Carolina, who was found, who was homeschooled for their entire life. He's 30 years old now, who was basically like strapped to a bed and just like basically tortured for 20 years.
Yeah.
And people just, every time they went in, did little health checks. Oh, he's homeschooled, he's fine. And so the school system, something that I think the number one biggest fear that I have of the voucher program is that it is basically paying people who might be abusive to continue to abuse. Not in every situation, but there is a percentage of kids that are either severely neglected. Right. Like I know I was.
Because teachers are also, if people don't know this, mandatory reporters. If you see something, you must report it. Yeah. Or as a student tells you something, we are required by law to report it. So kids have to know, like when we would do our mental health days, we'd have to say, hey, you are free to share anything. But do note, like, I have to report, things if there's, instances of abuse, whatever. And so if you have a kid that's at home, the abuser is not going to report themselves for abuse.
And it's crazy because they just came out with an audit and they showed like a tremendous amount of fraud.
Yeah.
Reported from this voucher program.
And sometimes the vouchers are people who are struggling to get by. I can't really blame them for being like, hey, I need this money to put food on the table for my family or for us to have a place to live. Like, it's an imperfect system for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I know just from my personal experience, I had abusive parents and drugs in the house, and school was my getaway. It was my safety. It was like the one place where I felt like I was seen. I felt like if I like did my homework, like I would get that positive attention that I wasn't getting at home. And it really shaped me so much as a person. I can only imagine. Plus, I didn't have a cell phone.
We didn't have cell phones.
What are these kids going through if they're home in either abusive or neglectful situations, and then their parents say, I need that $9,000.
Right.
I'm not going to check up on you to make sure you're eating. I'm not going to check up on you to make sure you're doing your schoolwork.
We used to have tax-funded programs for kids to do outside of school, and that's gone as well. There's nothing for these kids to do outside of school. Like, the amount of money parents have to pay now for their kids to play a sport or do a club or something is insane.
Yeah.
To go to a camp. When I was growing up, everything was free, tax funded. So we had, like, in the summer, there was art, there was track and field, there was tennis, there was like the woods, there's all sorts of stuff. And me and my siblings did all of it. We were out of the house every day doing something, didn't cost money.
Yeah. And now even the YMCA and like the Boys and Girls Club are so expensive.
Yeah.
So, all of this conversation is just it leads people back to politics, right? Like, I heard you say that parents will be quick to vent to you about how broken the system is, but you're like the lowest hanging person on the totem pole.
When parents would complain to me or students would complain to me, what I would tell them is, they aren't going to listen to me. You have to go complain to the higher ups because they care what you think. Yeah. So if you have a problem, like, I remember the district offered us a $25 increase to the end of our salary before taxes. Yeah. And I had a parent being like, what is up? I'm like, you need to go to a meeting or like write an email or something and tell them you think that this is crazy. Yeah. Because they're not, obviously I'm going to ask them for more money, but I'm like, if you go and do it, then it makes more of an impact.
But my other poke would be, they also need to vote. Like, I say this with fully understanding my privilege because I was not born in a political family. Everybody struggled financially with some type of addiction as well. Yeah. So I understand that it's a privilege to understand how politics works, especially when they're taking civics out of school. But if you don't vote and if you sit on the sidelines to all of these political things that are happening, your kids will pay the price.
I used to talk about, and I still say this phrase, it is great that we all went and voted for Obama. And then none of us voted in the midterms, and Obama couldn't do half the stuff he wanted to do because he was stuck with a Republican Congress. Mm-hmm.
And so people get mad and everybody wants to point fingers. And frankly, you're the one that answers the phone. Congressmen and women don't typically answer the phone.
Right. I'm required to respond to emails, phone calls, and texts from parents or whatever within 48 hours.
It's insane. Mm-hmm. So, I would assume that your nudge into starting to volunteer for things like the Environmental Caucus, which you are now the president of, I'm stepping down after, I think, almost 4 years, would be a natural transition because you can only beat your head against a brick wall for so long before you start to realize, like, all of these things are intersectional to policy. Correct. And by getting more enlightened as an educator or as a environmental enthusiast, you realize that policy is the only way to fix this broken system that everybody's so exhausted in dealing with.
Yeah, a few points here. So, yeah, I have had students for years ask me to run for some sort of office. I was never against educating kids about this. I actually would finish my curriculum by the end of the third quarter, and fourth quarter was like real life stuff. And part of it was explaining about like the government and like politics and voting and what different elections there are, and giving them this info. We used to get kids registered to vote when they turned 18 because if you're not telling them, they don't know. And so then also part of it is we ignore young people so much, and they're forced to live with the consequences of our actions, and they get no say in it. Just like we are forced to live with Reagan era economics, trickle-down economics that we were not alive for, didn't vote for, and now we're all suffering because of it, right? So I don't understand why people are not running towards young people,
right,
to get that. You know, for years I have been saying this. Go talk to young people. Go talk to them and see what they care about. And maybe we can get them before Andrew Tate does.
Right.
Or before, like, you know what I mean? Like before these people, before Joe Rogan does or Charlie Kirk, you know, like if we can enlighten them and show them, hey, like this is what's happening and here's what you can do about it. And here's how to get involved. And here's how we make change. Educate them about what needs to be done. And then the other issue is more young people need to run for stuff. We all complain it's all old white men. Okay, so where are the young people?
Right.
Who's right? In Orange County, we are lucky to have tons of young people who run for things and young people who want to be involved and are like actively involved. But in other places, people aren't creating the community. They're not having like regular meetings. Like people come to Orange County all the time. Okay, you think you're the only Dem in your county, right? Start having a meeting, see who shows up, start building from the ground up. Like Orange County didn't happen overnight. It was strategically built over the course of several years.
Yeah, just like, you know, 2 elections ago, we had a fully Republican county commission.
Right. So I think like people, just because someone can't vote doesn't mean you should, like young people doesn't mean you should ignore what they are saying or what they're concerned about, because that person eventually is going to be able to vote. And then when they are able to vote, are they getting your vote?
Right.
Or do you care about the things that they say they care about? And I'm so glad we have young people who care, even if they can't vote, and who are vocal about the things, you know, that are happening and they want change. Like how lucky for us that these young people exist and we can work with them.
And, you know, I think that, well, first of all, you're a huge role model. You know, you're young, you're getting involved, you're starting. I think specifically, this is something I'm so excited that you're here, because I talk politics with everybody and everybody has their own angle of looking at it, but specifically the environment. Because like you said, you brought your kids who were naughty kids outside, and every teacher was like, girl, you do that, you're going to have a whole bunch of headache. You did it, and they were like so relieved. It decompressed them. It helped them to learn better.
We had so much fun.
Yeah.
Not that every day was like, obviously stuff happens and kids misbehave. Like, I'm not saying that. But in general, we had so much fun.
Yeah.
Because if every day was a disaster, then we would have taken a break from outside for
and
a
it
second.
helped them learn.
Right.
Right. Well, then here we have politics. Civics has been gutted out of our education system. People are really repulsed by how nasty our political atmosphere has become. And they don't want to spend time when they're already stressed out just getting by.
Right.
Putting their mind and free time into political organizing.
People tap out.
When
life is already hard enough, and then you want me to deal with other hard things, people don't have the capacity for that.
But I think where I find joy in bringing people into politics is through the environmental organizing work, because everyone, I believe, cares about the environment, whether it's a butterfly outside their window or it's just being able to go outside and look at the sky.
Who doesn't want to step outside and breathe a breath of fresh air? You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't find joy in like looking at a body of water?
Right. Going to the beach.
Right.
And how that informs someone's, mental health and why it's all very intersectional, and it's an easy gateway drug.
Part of the biophilia hypothesis.
Right.
Being around other living things makes you happier.
Exactly. And so, it's a gateway drug to politics, I believe. And that's where the environmental caucus comes in. I truly believe that you can bridge any gap with someone by finding something in common with them. And if you specifically talk about the environment, you'll find something, whether Republican or Democrat or NPA, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And I think everybody wants to make sure their kid is drinking clean water, or that they themselves are not going to, have asthma, or
that we're able to grow food,
that we're able to grow our own food, or even just the ability to, not be susceptible to various cancers because of our water quality. Yeah. And it frustrates me more than anything that like RFK has siphoned off like the Make America Healthy Again kind of, health moms, because that is the foundation of what Democrats stand for.
The wellness to alt-right pipeline is wild. It's
wild to me because we're the ones that are fighting for the intersectional policies to make sure that people from birth to 80 have pedestrian safety walkways, have healthy foods in schools, have all these things. I mean, Michelle Obama had policies to help make sure that kids were eating fresh foods and, but for some reason.
And people complained about it.
Yep. And for some reason,
and they didn't fund it.
Just like you brought up with us as in Democrats neglecting kids in our, outreach plan. We do that because consultants do not have records of their voting behavior. And the way that consultants make money.
So we ignore what we don't know.
We ignore what we don't know and what we don't fully understand yet. And what we do is we pour all of our time in a guaranteed yes. We're going after the older, more moderate Democrats to ensure turnout. And so all of the messaging and all of our candidate recruitment revolves around this atmosphere of we have to just make sure that we get turnout and this is our guarantee.
And meanwhile, they're hemorrhaging young people to the right.
Exactly.
Because of the, divisive politics.
And so when I look at the environment, and especially you brought up young people being susceptible to the next generation's policies, every young person I know knows what climate change is.
Yep. Despite the fact that they removed it from curriculum in Florida.
Exactly. And they understand that no one is really speaking to that on either side, full-throated and making a plan for their future. And I think maybe that's why a lot of kids are starting to just
be apathetic.
Yeah. Or turn to these toxic influencers online that make them feel a sense of confidence.
Right. You and I both recently went to Europe. And when we both came back, the thing we spoke about was people asked, what was your favorite thing? And we both said a walkable city with public transportation, a city that's not built around cars.
Yeah.
What an easy way to deal with an environmental issue, to lower costs for people, to bring about community, riding the train with people. Like, it's a no-brainer to me, and yet no one's talking about it. Like things like that are just, why are we not just putting solar panels everywhere?
Right.
Why, like over parking lots?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've paved over all this land for cars. Could we at least put solar panels over it, provide shade, and now we get renewable energy? Like this stuff is so simple and cost effective. And we're just not doing it.
Yeah. And, they say America first. And it's like, okay, America first, but we're going to kidnap oil tankers from Venezuela and spend millions of dollars confiscating other countries' oil, even starting wars for it.
Well, so much of this stuff obviously goes back to Ronald Reagan and deregulation and letting people pay for politics, basically. And people can contribute. The Citizens United, like it has got to stop. It has ruined this country.
Yeah.
Because whoever has the most amount of money, okay, cool. Well, billionaires are typically unethical. They will give people starvation wages and then they can pay for whatever they want. And it's like, so democracy, like
nothing is more America first than generating our own energy here in America with the free no war necessary energy coming directly from the sky.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, now trust me, there's lithium, there's mining,
Right.
but if we spent the same amount of money innovating to make batteries less invasive to our environment and to human rights issues,
correct,
we could be like China, literally making batteries out of like salt.
Also, okay, so people are like, oh, climate change isn't real. Okay, let us do all this green stuff. And if it doesn't work, you've owned the libs.
Yeah.
The biggest own you've ever had, right? Let us do it all. And then if it doesn't work, you can talk about it until you die about how your thing didn't work. Let us try and see what happens.
100%. Well, I think, you know, Joe Biden definitely did try and made a huge leap forward, but was a horrible messenger and a horrible communicator to ensure that people knew what they got out of the American Rescue Plan as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. But today, you are stepping up into this leadership role with the Environmental Caucus here in Orange County. And I'm just curious, like, what if you could determine yourself successful as the next Environmental Caucus president, what would it look like?
It would look like every candidate having a stance on the environment and being educated. It is so wild to me that people don't know about where they live. They don't understand, like,
candidates specifically.
Yeah. Like, you have constituents that are going to deal with water issues and flooding, and you're not knowledgeable about it. And then when they come to you, what are you going to do? What do you say to them? Mm-hmm. So I think, honestly, like, any candidate having a stance is a win for me, that they even thought to have an idea about this. Because people always have, you know, economics. Everything is intersectional. And so it is so important to me. Like, environmental justice is a very real thing. And like, your economy is linked to the environment too. Like, everything is linked to the environment. And the way that people just like don't even think about it, I can't comprehend.
Yeah. Even though it's a part of us, we are nature.
Right.
And for some reason, we're so disassociated. You wonder why kids are so bad. Like, kids are supposed to be running outside and playing and honestly sleeping in the sun, like curled up in the grass.
Right.
Like, we're supposed to be exposed to some of the most natural wonders of our world in order
or
to
even
help,
a community pool.
Yeah. Help our immune system, help our just comprehension. And yet we have this requirement to have very precise metrics to prove. It all comes back to how we measure our success, our productivity. And I think in addition to Citizens United and billionaires being unethical and having a huge influence in our political system, I think our society's structure of wanting that return in those metrics is what's failing every single system.
We've done capitalism on overdrive. People are so greedy and individualistic. People love convenience. Like, it has destroyed us. Yeah. It has absolutely destroyed us as a community, as a country. People don't, like, we used to be able to just like walk to the market in the neighborhood and the businesses were where we lived.
Yeah.
We didn't have to drive 15 minutes to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And like, now with all of this, like, oh, we got the rat race, right? Well, you and I have both lived in Europe at different times. Yeah, you just like go to the market and buy your vegetables that day that you need for dinner.
Yeah. Because
your job isn't like stressing you out and you're not overscheduled and you can't miss that ballet class because we paid $1,000 for, you know, like it's just, we've created an unfulfilling life for everybody. And like, I wish people understood, like, it doesn't have to be this way. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't always this way. Like, you used to be happy despite who the president was.
Yeah.
And what was going on. And like, you could have a fulfilling life and, you know, do the things you wanted to do and like have time for yourself and be able to afford things. And it's just like, they've isolated people so much that it makes it so hard to bring people together.
And I truly believe that there is a way to fight it. Every single dollar that you spend is a vote. every single way that you choose to opt into convenience or not. I refuse to do self-checkout. I refuse to do it. I always go into the lane because I know I'm a data point to these mega, shopping centers like Walmart. And so even just those small decisions, making sure that I'm making eye contact with the cashier. I even put in, sometimes if I have enough time, I'll even put in a complaint and just say, I don't like how many self-checkout lanes there are, just because I want something on record and I'm not trying to be a Karen, but I want people to know that I'm unhappy that you're taking jobs out of my community.
Yeah.
And even though the jobs were not even like great jobs that were paying a living wage, it's the corporate unchecked capitalism.
And it makes people feel like it's okay to scream at workers.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, well, you're the person who's here for me to scream at.
Yeah. It's like,
if I have to interact with someone,
it's like we have to use every single piece of our power. I know that this is something you're super passionate about, but like checking who makes who, as in which corporations make what campaign contributions, and just ensuring that when you're planning out your grocery list,
correct,
you're like, I'm not going to go to Target. I
don't go. And guess what? It has been so easy to not go to certain places. I spend less money. I just cleaned out a bunch of old clothes out of my closet. And like for 2026, I'm not buying new clothes.
Yeah. Making these little goals for yourself and these little strides. And it's so
overconsumption has been normalized, and we don't need, because like you said, how do you measure growth? Well, in America, how much stuff you have, how much money you have, having stuff is how you show your wealth, right? And having all these unnecessary things. Or how about like how happy I am?
Yeah. It's so funny how companies have this crazy whiplash of like being woke and then not being woke. And then they're like, oh, we have all this DEI stuff and we have all these DEI programs. Now we're just succumbing to all of that and just completely.
Target had all these programs for like Black women-owned businesses. And then we're like, buy DEI. And like, yeah, I don't agree with that. And now I don't shop there anymore. And it's super easy not to shop there.
Yeah, 100%. So I ask every guest this, since we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Because, you're young, you're getting into politics, you're starting to hold your candidates accountable in your local community, organizing while also trying to be a teacher and a badass and inspiring kids
and having a social life.
How are you able to look so good and be so refreshed?
I'm a millennial. We're not aging.
Like, how are you able to do that and like replenish yourself? What do you do to give back to yourself?
There's a few things. First of all, I go to therapy. I have a wonderful therapist if you need a recommendation, but she requires me to use all my PTO every year. And like through therapy, I've done a really good job at like getting back to my hobbies and scheduling rest or like time for enjoyment, right? So like, as you know, I do a lot of baking, and I recently learned how to bake bread because went to Paris and had no tummy issues for the whole weekend. And I'm like, I can't buy bread ever again. Yeah. And I just make it at home.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get some.
Yeah, she has given me more bread than I think I've ever eaten in my entire life.
But it's so good.
And it doesn't give you that bloat and like feel like you're like 800 pounds.
Right. And also like getting back to my hobbies, like Sundays I go walk around instead of the gym because I like to go to the gym, but Sundays I'll go for like a walk around the lake instead. Like I know it's outside. I also have like a list on my phone that's like have a good day list. That someone had told me about that they do. And it's like little things each day that I do. And part of it is doing some skincare, moisturizing my skin and taking care of myself. Like I can't make change if I am depleted.
Yeah.
Right. And that part of teaching, I can't show up every day if I'm not pouring a little bit back into myself. So and it doesn't have to be like grand gestures. My plants bring me joy. Doing like my arts and crafts, reading. I read a ton of books. I go to the library every couple weeks and get a few new books, and I read a lot before bed. And I've limited my doom scrolling, and I play a lot of solitaire on my phone.
Yeah,
which isn't good for my mind. And of course, my go Birds
and
my Philadelphia sports,
Philadelphia Eagles.
So I get my rage out is screaming at the TV.
Apparently, it's a football team.
is a wonderful football team.
And apparently they're really good, because I just traveled to Europe and I traveled to Massachusetts, and I saw so many people in literally Iceland wearing Eagles shirts.
We're everywhere.
So
we're everywhere.
I think that sometimes taking care of yourself should not be misinterpreted with convenience too. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I saved myself a trip. That's why I used Amazon. Or I did Instacart because I need to treat myself to a couple more minutes. Yeah. There's a little bit of a difference in, opting into convenience in your consumer behavior and also just taking that time to make sure that you're replenishing yourself.
And like taking care of yourself doesn't have to be these like great grand gestures. Mm-hmm. It's lighting a candle.
Yeah, and I think sometimes sometimes making sure that you're not funding the fascist regime in whatever way you do is taking care of yourself too.
Correct.
It should be looked at as self-care.
I sleep well because one of my things is I have to be able to lay my head down at night and know that I'm doing the things that I can do and controlling the things I can control to not contribute to the terribleness and the horrors, right? And so that is like I sleep well at night knowing that I'm not contributing and I'm fighting against it. And I'm also doing things for me that help me be better to fight these terrible things.
100%. Well, that's a wonderful way to end the podcast. Thank you for spending this time with me.
I'm always happy to hang out with you. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Sorry, Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts got to beat you today.
And to all the Taylor Swift fans out there.
Yes.
You have anything to sign off?
Taylor, if you're listening, I would love an invite to the wedding, but I know it probably won't come. But
I would love a sponsorship of the podcast.
Yeah, or let's do an episode where we bake sourdough together.
She
bakes sourdough.
That would be really fun. Okay, well, we'll see you on the next sourdough podcast, and we're
gonna start a sourdough podcast now.
We appreciate you all spending this afternoon with us, and go Birds.
Go Birds.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you heard today, please comment, subscribe, and share. And visit organizingtovictory.com so that you can learn more about all the ways that we're going to be organizing this year. It is the most important election year of our lives. I know you hear that all the time, but we here at Organizing to Victory hope to not just talk about the issues, but to organize around the issues. So please share, subscribe, and follow us. And we'll see you on the next one.